Food. You'd be surprised how many of us have an issue when it comes to food. Either we eat too much of it, too little of it, we have a real food or eating disorder, or maybe we have body dysmorphia and we're trying to address that through inappropriate eating. Well, my guest today is Elle Mace, who is a coach and therapist who helps people in those areas using what some might say are alternative therapies. And if you like this content, please do like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what it is about it that you like. But here is Elle Mace. Hi, and welcome to Alternatively Speaking with me, JJ, the Practical Alchemist. And my guest today is a wonderful coach and somebody who knows all about eating and our relationship with food, and that is Elle Mace. Elle, I am so pleased that you're with me today to talk about food and our relationship with it and all things to do with the body.
Yes. Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Now, I'm hugely into our relationship with food, about eating proper food, real food. And of course, what comes into that is our relationship with food and how we view food. And a lot of people have, let's just say, interesting relationships with food. And it kind of leads into body dysmorphia and all of that. I mean, you help people with what is the biggest thing that you see people struggle with when it comes to food?
Mm. Lots of different things. I mean, one of the main things at the moment is kind of impulsive eating. So
Yeah.
overeating, emotional eating, stress eating, binge eating. But then that leads like quickly into restriction, and then people are in these vicious diet cycles. Also, another aspect of people's stress levels is getting stressed out about what they're eating and having, overwhelming feelings of guilt and shame. Um, they're probably the main sort of things that are going well, and also something that are just really super restrictive.
Probably a lot more of it going on these days because we see all these things on social media, all these people on social media, all in my mind, probably, perfect and wonderful. And of course, that leads into people saying, well, I've got to look like that. So I've got to restrict what I eat. Yeah. So it's a complex subject, isn't it?
It's a very complex subject. It's very opinionated. Everyone has 1,000 million different theories about everything. So it's a minefield, and if people haven't got time or the resources to um, investigate it themselves and to learn and to, power themselves with knowledge, which a lot of people don't, then they're just reading things from social media or magazines or, whatever is the kind of fad at that time.
Yeah. So how do you approach it? If somebody comes to you, well, who comes to you, first of all, and how do you approach it?
So people come to me, male or female, who have a difficult relationship usually with themselves as well. So they have a difficult relationship with themselves. A coping mechanism will be food. They have poor body image, maybe body dysmorphia. That then seeps out into so many other aspects of their life. Maybe they've got really poor boundaries. They have difficult holding relationships, people pleasing, because our relationship to food and body is connected to so many things, which people just don't know about. We all just think food, food and our relationship to food is just the physical food that we eat, which society, social media kind of tells us is really simple. Follow this plan, follow this
Yeah.
diet, then you'll feel
Yeah.
great. It's just not as simple as that. And for people that have grown up with trauma, lack of emotional resilience, food is like a huge aspect for them.
And I think we all have a bit of a problem with food at one time or another.
Yeah.
I think most of us have had some kind of issue with food over the years just because of the kind of lives that we lead. So there's no shame in having an issue with food or, maybe, having an eating disorder is something quite extreme. But even then, there's no shame in that.
Absolutely no shame. And 80% of people have a difficult relationship with food. Pretty much everyone at some point will experience it. So there should be no shame at all. I mean, even what people perceive as the kind of embarrassing disorder parts of it, maybe the bulimia or the binge eating disorder, it still shouldn't come with shame, because it's just you're in survival mode. It's just you have, doing something to try and soothe yourself or help yourself, but obviously we know it's not. It's a mental health condition, it's a disease, it's not something people can turn off and on. And if you're someone who is supporting someone with disordered eating, you've got to have patience and compassion, because they're not doing it on purpose. They're not trying to, frustrate you. It's a part of them that, that needs a lot of work and attention. And with the eating disorder, being extreme. So yeah, if you are classified as having an eating disorder, then you fall into a category where you're either doing something X amount of times a week, or your weight is a certain weight. But one step back from that, disordered eating, there's a huge amount of people with disordered eating.
Yeah, there are. So let's take a step back. How did you come to do this work, this kind of work?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I'm so passionate about it because I suffered with eating disorders myself for 17 years and body dysmorphia. It was in me from a really young age. As far as I can remember, I was watching what people were eating. I was trying to figure out how to eat myself, what was going to change my body, and I had, as a kid, you don't have the understanding that people eat differently, and you're not all going to have the same body. So I remember being at school, my friends were all really, really slim and they'd eat in a certain way. So then I would try and eat the same as them, thinking I'd get the same result. And yeah, I had really low self-worth, and a lot of my worth was on I need to look a certain way. I kind of quite quickly picked up at school, the popular people are pretty and skinny. So if I want to be safe in this world and I want to be liked, I need to change the way I look. And so that's kind of the course of action I took. And then what happens there is it escalates, and before you know it, 17 years later, I just had this, all these years of disordered eating, body image. Oh, awful.
What was it that got you away from this odd relationship with food? And I used to be skinny all the time, could eat what I wanted, never had a problem. So, I kind of fitted in with the norm. Of course, as I get older, it's not it's not as easy to maintain that, because your body goes through changes, and that's something that we need to bear in mind as well. Our bodies do not stay the same. So, what are the first steps to understanding that you have a problem with food and eating? And is it just, when people realize, oh, well, I'm doing this? Or, so in other words, do people come to you when they're sort of thinking, well, I'm doing this, like you were saying, I'm eating like these people are eating and I'm not getting the same results. What's wrong with me? Is that
Oh,
what
yeah.
happens?
Yeah, there's so much comparison around it all. Comparison of people on social media with these filters,
Yeah.
comparison of everyone else in everyday life. You don't really know what's going on for anybody. I had a client call last week, and one of the girls said to me, there was this other mum at the school and she had her stomach out, and I just wish that I felt like her. But I was like, well, you don't know how she feels. She
No.
actually might be hiding behind some, persona there. Like, you don't know her journey to get to that point. And so, yeah, you can't compare what you eat to others. And also, we're also genetically different, and what plays a huge part in your body size and being able to shift weight or, achieve body goals is stress, in your nervous system. And that's all different for everyone as well.
Yeah, stress plays a huge part, I think, doesn't it, in body weight, because of the release of cortisol, isn't it? But what are the other telltale signs that you have an issue with food?
Any eating, habits and behaviors that don't feel right. So, if you're somebody that is, it comes down to intuitive eating. If you intuitively feel hungry and you eat until you are satisfied or full, not over full. When you get like so exhausted because you've eaten so much, you get full, and then you bide time, see what happens, go to work, do whatever, and then you get that feeling again, oh, I'm a bit hungry, and you eat. And then maybe it's just a snack, and then you're fine with that. And then you have your lunch and then your dinner. It's all very peaceful. It's all very calm. There's no, don't eat this, don't eat that, you can't eat that. Oh my gosh, how many calories? All of that narrative, if that's going on for you, that's not normal. If you're really resisting eating, I can't eat, I'm so hungry, I can't eat, that's not normal. If you're really struggling to achieve your body goals, that's, I'm not saying that's not normal, because there's so many different aspects to that, but you've got to really look at the bigger picture medically, who you are, at where you're at in life. Just trying to control your food more is probably going to make it worse. The feelings of, I touched on this, guilt and shame. Basically, how much is your relationship to your body and food consuming in your headspace? And if it's consuming too much, then you need to get it sorted.
Yeah, I love that concept of intuitive eating as well. But how do you develop that skill?
Yeah, we're all born intuitive eaters. So, you try and give a 2-year-old milk when they're full, they will just turn their head, they won't eat it. Even if you give a toddler a big slab of chocolate cake, if they're full, they're not going to eat it. So we're born intuitive eaters. Now, for some people, they stay like that forever. That's fantastic. They haven't engaged in, trying to change or manipulate themselves, or, whatever. They've got a very good relationship with food. But for many and most, it's you start manipulating how you eat, and it's as young as 7 now with the latest stats. As young as 7, people are losing that intuition because they're watching what their parents are eating. They can hear the television adverts about things, no fat, no sugar, no this. So they're already starting to change the way they eat. And as soon as you start doing that, it's really hard to just click your fingers and go back. I don't often know anybody who has engaged in a diet, and diets do fail. So they'll then engage in another one, and then they'll go, this isn't for me. And they'll just completely go back to their normal, if that's right, normal eating, without a care in the world. So you just can't. You've already created those pathways. You've already created those, those transmitters and those thoughts, feelings and habits, behaviors around food. So then you're in it.
Yeah. So then you need somebody to help you really find that equilibrium, find that balance, where you can get to a point where you can really just be at one with your body and hear what you really need to eat and feel that you want to eat. It's fascinating though, isn't it? I mean, we've made such a big thing. I mean, eating is a big thing, but we've made such a song and dance about it, about what's right and what's wrong. It's very, very difficult. But then on top of that, you've got things like ultra processed food, which isn't particularly healthy for us, and so all of that comes into play. It's a bit of a minefield, really.
It is. And if you listen to everything, you're gonna just stress yourself out completely. I mean, if I literally scroll through Instagram and put in diet tips, the 5 top ones that come up will all be contradicting to each other, no doubt. And you're going to be left feeling like, I really don't know what to do. I mean, I think also people are cutting out food groups. They're doing all this kind of stuff. If there's something wrong with you medically, go to the doctor. Get yourself sorted, get your blood test. Maybe if something comes of it, get a nutritionist, whatever that is, if there's something wrong with you. If there is not, then what it usually is your erratic eating is causing issues. It's causing bloating, it's causing constipation, it's then causing diarrhea, that kind of not eating for long periods of time, then eating just loads of junk food, cutting out food groups, and then expecting your food to just process it as normal. All these kind of things. I know certainly for me, and I see it in so many of my clients. Like I was one of those that was like, look at my bloated stomach. I'd take loads of photos. I'd go to the doctors. Look, there's something wrong with me, IBS, etc. And got all the tests done. It was always like, no. I mean, some people, the answer will be yes, and you need to get your medical
Yeah.
support. But for
Yeah.
me, it was no. And so, anyway, that was the start of my journey of like, I just got to get this sorted because I really was getting really swollen. It was horrible and cramps. So anyway, I went on my journey to heal my relationship with food, etc. I never get those issues anymore. They
Mm.
went within a few months of really healing my gut and healing my relationship with food. When I say healing my gut, that's not going and buying all these swanky this, that, and the others. It was actually let's recover, let's eat, let's actually eat to a kind of rhythm that my body's going to get used to. So maybe that's little and often, or 3 meals a day, or just something. If fuel myself with those foods again that I should be eating.
Yeah. Yeah. And, some people are intolerant of
Yeah,
certain things and food groups.
yeah.
But interesting what you say about, just taking a food group out of your diet and then suddenly reintroducing it and you can't cope with it. Well, I remember many years ago when I was vegetarian, I stopped being vegetarian after some time because I didn't feel as well as a vegetarian as I do eating some meat. But I do remember that if I tried to eat meat when I was, during that period of being a vegetarian, I couldn't digest it. I could not tolerate it. I
Mm,
literally couldn't tolerate it. And, a lot of people couldn't understand what I was talking about, but your gut changes. It changes and adapts to what you're putting into it.
yeah,
And, if you're a carnivore, great. Your gut is, hopefully adapted to you being a carnivore, omnivore, I should probably say, or carnivore. Some people are
yeah.
on carnivore diets. If you're vegetarian, it will adapt to that. So you have to be very careful about, all this kind of cutting things out left, right, food groups, particularly like cutting out carbs, cutting out, all sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to be so careful with it because also most of it, unless medically prescribed, is not sustainable. So when you
Yes.
decide to go and cut out carbs, you inevitably are going to eat them again, and you're going to eat them in full force. Like it's, you will once you stop, you're not you once you start, you're not going to stop. And so when you decide to cut out carbs, know that when you do put them back into your body, which will be within a few days, maybe weeks or whatever, when you can't cope anymore mentally or physically because it's so essential, you're going to have a tummy ache. You're going to have cramps. You're going to be constipated. You're going to feel tired very, very quickly because you'll probably overeat them as well. And for the people that have no disordered eating, that that a lot of it as well is genetic and the way your brain is chemically, but for some people there's nothing going on like that, so they could maybe not eat carbs for a day or two and then have them, and they'll overeat on them a bit. But for those people who are in dietary chaos, have been for a while, have always been messing around with diets and food and restriction, all this sort of stuff. If you're someone that cuts something out, you are going to overeat. You are
Yeah.
maybe even going to binge eat on it. Like it's
Yeah.
so common.
So, given all of that, and given that some people really are concerned about their eating and about their how their body is and how their body looks, where do you start?
You start at the foundations. Are you sleeping? If you're not sleeping, you're tired and you're exhausted, you're not going to have the motivation to exercise nor follow, not saying a food plan, in a negative way, but trying to maybe rebuild your diet. um it's really hard to do anything exhausted. So how are you sleeping? Are you getting out in nature? Are you
Mhm.
getting some sunshine, or even just walking in nature? Are you drinking enough water? Have you got connection to a certain extent? I mean, there's lots of lack of connection in different areas, but are you even talking to somebody? These parts are really important. And when especially I have clients now say, right, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Well, look at their sleep. They're going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, they're up first thing, so always go back to the foundations.
Yeah, you're right. You've got to get the foundations right before you can go any further. So then what would be the next step after that? So say people are getting enough sleep, they're getting enough exercise, they're drinking enough water. Where do you go from there?
Then it's, I think, awareness. So like awareness of what else is going on here. So yes, you're eating in this way, your eating habits and behaviors, this is what your diet is, but what else is going on here? So, and that is a whole, that's that part there is huge. What trauma have you got? How do what is there, what where do you lack, where's there a void in your life? Where are you lacking some important components of life? What are your triggers? Emotional eating's huge. Why are you emotional eating? And some of this stuff is deep rooted. So that awareness, not acceptance as such, but that awareness of like, because it's amazing how people suppress feelings and emotions and events, or very much in denial. The amount of people I've spoken to said, I don't really have an issue with food, I'm fine. And then they'll come to one of my events or a retreat, or they'll be in a session of mine or something, and they'll say, oh my gosh, I do. So really just bringing that awareness to yourself.
Yeah, it's not just a case of giving somebody a nutritional chart and saying, look, that's what's good for you, go away and eat it.
Oh no.
Not like that
No.
at all. Although, you do give people nutritional advice, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nutrition slightly different for working with disordered eating, than it is just work. Well, nutrition is different for athletes. It's different for someone needs to improve their energy or their strength. And for disordered eating, it's very complex. So nutrition does change things up. You do have to, and again, different types of the disordered eating, like people that are really struggling with binge eating disorder, and their afternoons and evenings they're having these heavy binges. Really high protein in the morning is really, really important. And we might even encourage like a protein shake to have in the morning to really really up that intake, especially if they've had a binge the night before and they can't bear to put any solid food in their mouth. So it all varies, but absolutely, I mean, it's still a very important part of it. But there's no point in getting a food plan right if the disordered eating isn't sorted, the disease part.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you use different approaches to that as well, don't you? Because I think I'm right in saying you use hypnotherapy apart from, a whole load of other things as well.
Yeah, and CBT is the main
Yeah,
kind of
excellent.
therapy
Yeah.
used. Yeah, so CBT, NLP as well, obviously talk therapy, but then hypnosis and more kind of alternatives as well. So breath work, obviously movement, yoga is very good for reconnecting with the body. Yeah, they're kind of the main ones that I would focus on.
Yeah. And we talk about these alternatives, but it's not so alternative these days, I sometimes think.
No, no.
It's the alternative is becoming the mainstream in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, alternative now, I guess, would be like mushrooms.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and not the garlic mushroom kind of mushrooms either. Um, but yeah. So, and you talk about retreats. So you run retreats, and you do workshops and that sort of stuff. And presumably, people can find out all about those at your website.
Yes. So, yeah, my website's got lots of information on it. Or my Instagram is probably the place that I'm at the most. Also, I work with lots of business people, so I'm on LinkedIn a lot. And then, I do all the rest, all the others that are around. But yeah, all information around. If you can't see something or you want to know something, then you just drop me a DM or an email, and I can obviously give the information that you need.
Absolutely. And your website is ellmace.com. And, I'm curious about the workspace work that you do, because, are you looking at people's relationship to food when you're doing work in the workspace and the workplace? Or are you doing much more sort of personal kind of enhancement work? Enhancement, that's not the word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's very, very varied. I do lots of talks around food and body and nutrition to businesses. I also work on, emotional resilience, building that emotional resilience in general. I'm a positive psychology practitioner as well, so a lot of that comes into it. Really connecting to your emotions, your feelings, and how they connect to relationships to people, relationships to work. I mean, back to food and body. A common characteristic is like OCD and perfectionism, which also is a common characteristic within business and work and your career. So, there's a lot of control needed in both. A kind of wide range of topics, which is fun.
Yeah, but it is all related, really, which is
Mm-hmm.
fascinating.
Yeah.
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 And a lot of people might have real issues in the workplace that feed into, to excuse the pun, into their eating, stress eating, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, stress eating. Also, a lot of people are, suffering with low self-worth, but in an area of their life, like a business, they have high self-worth. So therefore they will keep pumping into that, giving that the time of the day, getting that external validation, and therefore then their personal sides just kind of, fall by the wayside. And they don't look after themselves so well because they haven't got that balance, but also they actually know that there's some bigger things that they need to deal with, and it's just easier to suppress it and carry on with the things that feel great and we feel successful in.
If you were to give somebody one piece of advice or a couple of pieces of advice, but one piece of advice, or if somebody's sitting, listening, or watching this and saying, I think I've got a problem with food. Where's the first step? What do they do? First thing to do if they think they have a problem?
Definitely get help, tell somebody, or whether that is calling your doctor. Definitely call your doctor, because they need to see at what level this is. And if you can get support there, great. If not, then reach out to, there's lots of private practitioners, like myself, but also there's lots of free resources as well, the NHS Speak website. So reach out so that you're taking action. Telling somebody close to you is also a really good thing, because typically what happens is we know we've got a problem, we think, okay, I'm going to deal with it, then it starts to feel a bit hard and a bit scary, so then we don't, and then we've got no one there saying to us, did you follow up with that? Obviously not intruding on it too much because it's very, very private, but just making sure that you're getting a little gentle nudge to make sure you do it. So it's that. But again, it comes down a bit to those foundations, but self-care. Like, okay, slow life down. I need to hear what's going on. Like, typically, again, everyone's very double busy when we've got these other things going on, but just slow life down. What's going on for me? Like, self-care, self-love, understand yourself.
I think
Yeah.
that's really important, isn't it? Having that community around you to support you and also just make sure that you're staying on track.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be a game changer. I attempted recovery many, 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 many times. Again, very, very common. And it was only until I said to somebody, oh my gosh, this is going on for me. I feel really embarrassed. I feel all of this sort of stuff. But you've got to make sure I get out of this. Not on them, but just make sure you see me taking action. And that was when it all completely changed.
Yeah, I think that's one of the keys. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking it, but to me it seems like one of the keys. If you have the courage to say to somebody, listen, I've got a problem with this and I need help.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's the first step. What do you reckon? Maybe that is the
Yeah.
first thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then seeing your doctor, because I think again a lot of people feel that they're just going to be dismissed by their doctors.
Very hard. It's very hard. Unfortunately, in the disordered eating world, there's a bit of a common theme of you're not sick enough, because you do have to
Okay.
fall into certain categories. But what's also linked to difficult relationship with food is depression and anxiety, and that's something that they can support you with very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, usually. So, but yeah, you must, because then that you have seen that professional, and you can get that professional advice, and then that's when you can go and seek other alternatives. But it is really important. I know there's this narrative that you won't get the help, but you also might.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess that, and as well in people's own minds, I'm not really sick. I'm not
Yeah.
really ill. So why would I go and see my doctor? But you talked about blood tests earlier, and of course, you can then see if you're deficient in something, or if there's something going on which you need to address. So that's always useful.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And even if you're going to go down the alternative route and say, well, I'm just going to, just make sure that I eat the right things at the right time for me, get all the other help, there's sort of mental help as well that I need. It's good to know what your base point is.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Well, look, Elle, thank you so, so much. I'm glad that you managed to get yourself out of all of that. It's
Yeah,
after much
thank you.
trying, after getting help yourself. And it's great. I always love hearing from people who have managed to, change their life, turn their life around, and then help other people do the same. It's brilliant. I think it's absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic because, if you want somebody to help you, find somebody who's gone through it themselves. That's what I always
Yeah,
say.
definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's brilliant. And
So,
again, people can find you at ellmace.com and they'll find you on social media as well.
yeah.
And so do get in touch with Elle if you feel that you need some help and support, if you have an issue with food, if you think you have a serious eating disorder, but do go and see your health practitioner as well and get make sure that you're okay physically before you go forward with sorting that out. Elle, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to talk to you.
Lovely.
Great to meet you. Thank you. It's lovely to see you so, bubbly and well. And yeah, to everybody who's been watching and listening, thank you very, very much for joining us today. And please do remember to like and share and subscribe to this channel and help us get on the way. And let me know what you liked, what you found interesting in this interview, this chat, whether you want to see more of stuff like this. I'd be very grateful to hear from you. So for now, from me and Elle, thanks so much. And I'll see
Thank
you
you.
next time.
Bye bye.